What's up, everybody? Today I am finally doing my ranking of the Goosebumps SlappyWorld series. So this month in February, I had 4 books left to read in the SlappyWorld series, and I decided to just kind of knock them out and get this series out of the way because I'll just be straight up with you guys. This is probably my least favorite Goosebumps series in the entire franchise. Most Wanted is down there too, maybe kind of tied with Most Wanted actually is like my least favorite. But yeah, this series is not that great, so this will probably be a very fast ranking because I just don't have a lot to say about several of these books, and this was also a very easy ranking to put together. You know, a lot of the other rankings that I've done for the series, GYG, Series 2000, they've been very easy to or very difficult to decide, like, between a lot of the books. This series, it really wasn't that difficult. To be honest, pretty much every book in this series kind of sucks. Just some of them suck more than others. So yeah. So anyway, there are 20 books. Technically, there's 19 books in the SlappyWorld series, but I am also counting Slappy Beware, which was a special edition book released during the time SlappyWorld was coming out. And I think it is kind of counted as part of the SlappyWorld series, even though it's not really numbered. And it's like titled as a special edition. So I'm still counting that one as well for a total of 20 books. And I've also split them up into categories. And let's just get right into things. So the first category is awful. There are only 2 books in this category, and I gave them both a flat 1 out of 5 stars. So starting at the very bottom, book number 20, my least favorite SlappyWorld book, and also one of the worst Goosebumps books that I've ever read in my life. And that is Attack of the Jack. This is the second book in the SlappyWorld series. And this is one of those books that just feels completely random. There is no coherent or cohesive plot to this book whatsoever. It's just a lot of random crap happening. Think Legend of the Lost Legend from the original 62 series, but even worse than that. That's what you're going to expect from this. And yeah, I don't think there was a single thing that I liked about this book. This was awful. Flat 1 out of 5 stars. Easily the worst SlappyWorld book for me. And also one of the worst Goosebumps books that I've ever read. So yeah, Attack of the Jack comes in at the very, very bottom. Okay, coming in at number 19. Also not really much better than Attack of the Jack. Also a 1 out of 5 stars. And that is Haunting with the Stars. And this is book number 17 in the series, third to the last one. And yeah, I can't think of anything I liked about this one either. This one is pretty much a straight up rehash of Earth Geeks Must Go from Series 2000. If you've read that book, it's basically where kids go to outer space. They're on this strange alien planet and they are trying to figure out how to escape. And this one is pretty much played up just for humor, for laughs. It's not really supposed to be really serious or scary, but it's not funny at all to me. It's just too childish, just too dumb and stupid. And basically, all of the aliens on this planet where our kids are stranded, they tap dance. Yes, this book is all about tap dancing aliens. It's as dumb as it sounds. So yeah, Haunting with the Stars, 1 out of 5 stars for this one as well. Comes in at number 19. Like I said, this is probably going to be a pretty fast ranking. Okay, coming in at number 18. And now we are moving into the category of books that I consider bad. Those are the only 2 that I consider truly terrible. These next few, I just consider bad, and they're like 1.5 out of 5 stars. So yeah, not the worst thing I've ever read, but still not good at all. So, coming in at number 18, we have The Ghost of Slappy, and this is book number 6 in the series. And this is the last Slappy book, Night of the Living Dummy book that I read in this series. So I think part of the reason I didn't enjoy this one is because I was just so sick and tired of reading about Slappy and reading all of these entries. So I think maybe this got to me a little bit more than it should have. But I still did not like this at all. This just, yeah, I don't have much to say about it. The Ghost of Slappy comes in at number 18. Okay, coming in at number 17, also bad, another 1.5 out of 5 star book, we have Slappy Birthday to You. And this is, I believe, the first one. Yes, the very first SlappyWorld book. And the reason that I don't like this one, I don't think this one is like as offensively bad as some of the previous ones I've talked about. But the reason I think this one is bad is because this one is literally just a complete reskinned version of the earlier Night of the Living Dummy books from earlier in the series, from the original 62 series. There is quite literally nothing new or unique in this book whatsoever. This is just a rewritten version of Night of the Living Dummy. You have all of the cliches and stereotypical stuff in here. You've got the talent show, the birthday party, the kid trying to impress his friends with his ventriloquism act, Slappy's insults and jokes. Literally everything in this book we've seen before. So yeah, this one isn't quite as terrible, as some of these other books in the series, but it's just bad because it's just boring and it's just the same old thing that we've seen a million times. So yeah, Slappy Birthday to You comes in at number 17. Excuse me. Okay, coming in at number 16, also in the bad category, another 1.5 star book, we have Judy and the Beast. And kind of going along the lines with all of these just rehashed ideas and R.L. Stine just rewriting his own books, essentially. We have yet another one. Judy and the Beast is basically a ripoff of Jekyll and Hyde from Series 2000 and a much, much inferior version to that. And I did not get much enjoyment out of this book at all. And this is a little bit more well-written, I think, than some of these previous books that I mentioned, which is why I bumped it up slightly. Comes in at number 16. But yeah, I just didn't care for this one. It's literally Jekyll and Hyde from Series 2000, and that book is fantastic. I love Jekyll and Hyde. This one is not. If you want to read the idea that R.L. Stine uses for this story, just go read that book. It's a much better version of this. So yeah, Judy and the Beast. And I also don't like the cover of this one. I don't know why, but I just dislike this cover a lot. So yeah, that one comes in at number 16. Excuse me. Okay, coming in at number 15, we have They Call Me the Night Howler. Now, this is technically book number 3 in the Dr. Maniac series. We first saw Dr. Maniac in Horrorland with Dr. Maniac meets Robbie Schwartz, I believe it was called. And then in book number 2, from Most Wanted, we saw Dr. Maniac Will See You Now, both of which were completely garbage. And then we get this one from the SlappyWorld series called They Call Me the Night Howler. And this one is a slight improvement from those two books, mainly because Dr. Maniac is not as present. He's not really the center of the story in this one like he was in the 2 previous books. Thank God. But I still did not like this one at all. This is like another 1.5 out of 5-star book for me. Maybe a slight step up, maybe like a 1.75. This is another one of those like superhero comic book type stories that R.L. Stine likes to write occasionally. And I'm just not a fan of that subgenre at all. I don't really care for that kind of thing. It's just not for me. And the fact that Dr. Maniac is in here, thankfully he's not, throughout this entire story like he is in the previous books, but he's still in here, and he's a character that I absolutely loathe. I can't stand reading about him. So yeah, They Call Me the Night Howler comes in at number 15. Okay, coming in at number 14, this one, not much better. Also in the bad category, we have Please Do Not Be the Weirdo. And this is one, I believe this was actually one of the very first SlappyWorld books that I ever read, possibly my first. I remember borrowing a copy of this from the library back when the SlappyWorld was still relatively new. Let's see. Yeah, this one is number 4 in the series. And I remember just not caring for it at all. And this one might be a little bit of a hot take. I have seen some people in the community, I think some of my friends enjoy this one. But I don't like this one. I'm not a fan of it. Like a 1.75 out of 5. Yeah. Please Do Not Feed the Weirdo comes in at number 14. Okay. We are moving on, thankfully, from the bad category. And these next few books I'll be talking about are considered kind of like meh, slightly below average, not really good, not quite bad either, just in that very like mediocre territory. And the first one in that category, coming in at number 13, we have Slappy in Dreamland. And this is one that I was kind of excited about at first when this was announced because I think it has kind of a cool cover. And it seems like it has a fun premise to it, to where Slappy is basically invading people's dreams. It's basically like a kid's version of Nightmare on Elm Street. And it sounds like it might be kind of a fun story, but it really wasn't. It just ended up being not all that great. I don't even remember a lot about it, to be honest. I just remember thinking it was very mediocre. I gave it a 2 out of 5 stars. So yeah, Slappy in Dreamland comes in at number 13. Okay, coming in at number 12, we have Slappy Beware, the special edition SlappyWorld book. Again, it's, I guess, kind of debatable whether or not this is officially part of the series. It's kind of like a standalone book. It's like a really nice, fancy hardcover. And it's also much longer, too. I think this book is like 200 pages. Let me see. Okay, I lied. It's not quite that long. It's like 150 pages. And it's a very nice looking book. I love the cover and the aesthetic to it. And you also have some nice kind of inside cover art there. And yeah, this is a really cool book. But the story is just nothing really all that special. This is another one that is also just kind of faded from my memory. Like a lot of these books, I just don't really remember them all that much. And I guess that speaks volumes to the fact that these aren't really that great. So yeah, Slappy Beware, another 2-star book, comes in at number 12 in my ranking. Okay, coming in at number 11, we have Monster Blood is Back. And this one has kind of a cool idea to it. It's a little bit different. This is probably the most unique book in the Monster Blood franchise, to where you have these kids going on this cooking show. There's like this TV kids competition cooking show. And it's kind of an interesting idea, and I liked some parts of this book, but it ended up being a big disappointment because it barely even feels like a Monster Blood book. I don't think Monster Blood even comes into the story until like the very end at the climax, and it just ended up being just not that great. Another just sort of mediocre book. 2 out of 5 stars. Monster Blood is Back. And this is also my least favorite of all the Monster Blood books as well. Did not care for this one. Yeah, Monster Blood is Back comes in at number 11 on my ranking. Okay, coming in at number 10. And this is the last one in the mediocre category. So coming in at number 10, we have 5th Grade Zombies. And this is book number 14 in the series. And this is actually the last book that I read in this series. It was the last one I needed to read. I think I was putting it off simply because it's a zombie book, and I'm a little bit burned out on zombies, almost just as much as I am burned out on Slappy. And this book, starting out, was actually really good. I really enjoyed the first 40 to 50 pages of this book, even though, again, R.L. Stine is kind of rewriting his own stories here. This one borrowing heavily from The Scarecrow Walks at Midnight. This book is basically The Scarecrow Walks at Midnight, just with zombies instead of scarecrows. You have our protagonist, Todd, who is traveling to Wisconsin to live with his family there for a while, or some family members. And it's kind of like in the middle of nowhere in this small town, and they're farmers, and they have this big cornfield. And there's some pretty nice description in this book and writing. There's some eerie moments in here. I kind of like the atmosphere that it has. There's a really creepy moment where Todd is out in the cornfield exploring, and he gets lost. And there's a scene to where it feels like something or someone grabs him from behind, like he feels a hand, I think, squeezing his shoulder, and he turns around and there's nothing, there's nobody there. That actually creeped me out a little bit. So the first half of this book was decent. Unfortunately, this one completely falls apart at the end. The last 30 pages of this book is just horrendous. It is abysmal. It makes no sense at all. Throughout the book, there's this mystery of our character trying to figure out what these zombies are that he's seeing. And we get some explanation, or I should say, just an attempt at explanation in the final act of this book, and what we get is just completely idiotic. It makes zero sense whatsoever. And then we get an even stupider twist ending to this book that is just, yeah, it completely falls apart at the end. Yeah, 5th Grade Zombies is also a flat 2 out of 5 stars for me. I would have given it a higher rating if the ending would have been better, but yeah. 5th Grade Zombies, just kind of meh. Okay. Now we are moving on to the okay, decent territory. These next few books I'll be talking about are all like 2.5 out of 5 stars or thereabouts. So, coming in at number 9, we have My Friend Slappy. And this one has kind of a unique idea for a Slappy book. And I remember when I read this, I was a little bit fatigued on Slappy and getting sick of it. But I will admit this is one of the more unique ideas for a Night of the Living Dummy type story, where you have our protagonist who is actually kind of like a bully character. And when he comes in possession of Slappy, and Slappy comes to life and tries to terrify our protagonist and make him his slave, which is like along Slappy's usual antics. It's what he typically does. Instead of being afraid of Slappy and being victimized by him, our protagonist finds Slappy fascinating and actually becomes friends with him and uses Slappy to help him like bully and get revenge on these other kids that I think were bullying him, if I remember correctly. And yeah, this one was just okay, decent, like a 2.5 out of 5 stars. Not bad, not really that great, but I kind of enjoyed that this one did something a little bit different with the Night of the Living Dummy formula. So yeah, My Friend Slappy comes in at number 9. Okay, coming in at number 8, and I'm surprised this book made it as high as it did because I don't remember liking this one at all. And honestly, I actually probably should have put this one maybe a little bit lower down. But anyway, coming in at number 8, we have Night of the Squawker, and this one is number 18 in the series. And this one I absolutely love the cover of. I don't know, hopefully you guys can see that okay. This is one of my favorite SlappyWorld covers. And this book is basically a rewritten version of Lizard of Oz from the Most Wanted series. And it's a much better version of that though. Lizard of Oz is completely god-awful. This one has some kind of cool ideas to it. I like some of the characters in this book. I feel like the protagonist of the story is fairly well written, at least from what I remember. And him and his friends are like trying to make this homemade horror movie, which was a really cool idea. That's not something we've seen much before in these books. And yeah, this one had a few things going for it. It wasn't horrible, but it really suffers in the final act. And again, kind of goes in some weird direction with a very predictable plot twist that R.L. Stine has done before numerous times. And it just kind of craps the bed in the final act. Kind of like 5th grade zombies, but not nearly as atrocious as 5th grade zombies, which is why I put this one slightly above that. So yeah, like another 2.5 out of 5 stars. Night of the Squawker comes in at number 8. Okay, coming in at number 7, we have I Am Slappy's Evil Twin. And this one was okay. Another 2.5 star book. This is definitely, I think, one of the better of the Slappy books in this series. I enjoyed this one a little bit. You have 2 dummies in this one, Slappy and Snappy. And this one also has some good action in it, some pretty violent moments. From what I remember, there's like some explosions and stuff, and some pretty crazy scenes in this book. And yeah, I don't know. I don't remember a whole lot about it, but I remember thinking it was decent. I gave it a 2.5 out of 5 stars. And this one is number 3 in the series. So yeah, I Am Slappy's Evil Twin. Comes in at number 7 on my ranking. Okay, coming in at number 6, we have Escape from Shutter Mansion. This is book number 5 in the series. And this one has, I think, potentially one of the best ideas in this series out of all the stories. This one is kind of like a haunted house tale, basically, but there's a little bit more going on than just that. And I don't remember everything about this one. This one's a little bit fuzzy in memory as well. But I do remember being disappointed with like the second half of this book. I think there's a twist in here towards the end, or maybe it was a part of the twist ending, to where it kind of like retcons everything that happened in the book previously and makes it sort of an all-for-nothing story. Made it feel a little bit like a waste of time. But there is some pretty creepy stuff in here from what I remember that happens prior to that big twist. And again, it's kind of like a haunted house type story, which I really like those. I like haunted house stories. So yeah, Escape from Shutter Mansion, another 2.5 out of 5 stars. Comes in at number 6 on my ranking. Okay. Coming in at number 5, we have Diary of a Dummy. And this one is book number 10 in the series. And this was also one of the last books that I read in the series. And this one was a surprise, honestly. I did not expect to enjoy this one as much as I did. This one is a slight step up. I probably would give this one like a 2.75 out of 5. And this one doesn't have Slappy at the center of the story, which I think is one of the things I liked about it. This one is like a pseudo haunted house story, basically. Our main characters discover this diary that Slappy was writing in, and Slappy has been writing in this diary, giving an account of his search for this lost treasure, this lost gold that he's been looking for. And he has, I think, alluded to the fact that it might be hidden in this abandoned house in this town that these kids live in. And this house is supposedly haunted, or at least that's like the rumors of it. So these kids go to investigate in hopes of finding this lost treasure. And they get much more than they bargained for when they enter this house that turns out to be kind of actually haunted. There's a little bit of an explanation behind some of the stuff that goes on. And I wasn't a fan of the way everything played out in like the final act of this book. But I did really enjoy some of the scenes that happened in this house towards the end of this book. It was actually pretty crazy and kind of creepy, and I enjoyed it. This book was a surprise. I didn't quite love it. It wasn't fantastic, but I enjoyed the final act of this book. It was pretty wild. So yeah, 2.75 out of 5 for this one, and it comes in at number 5 on my ranking. Okay, coming in at number 4. Still like in the 2.5, maybe 2.75 star range. And this is the last one in like the decent territory. And this is Revenge of the Invisible Boy. This one is book number 9 in the series. And this one I also just adore the cover of. And honestly, I'm not sure what it is about it because it's kind of basic. You basically just have these clothes and then a smiley face painted on the locker there, implying that he's invisible. But there's just something about this cover that I love so much. I don't know what it is. But anyway, this is another one that is also just a little bit fuzzy in memory. I'm kind of just placing some of these based on the ratings that I gave them after first reading them. But I do remember thinking this one was decent. Not great by any means, but maybe a little bit better than some of the other invisibility stories that R.L. Stine has wrote. And yeah, I don't know. Don't have much to say about this one. Revenge of the Invisible Boy comes in at number 4 on my ranking. Okay, we are at the top 3 SlappyWorld books. In my opinion, of course, this entire list is just what I think of them. I'm not trying to be objective in any way, shape, or form. This is just all my personal preference. And these last 3 books were a little bit tough to decide between because they are all very close to the same rating. And they are all like in the good category. Not necessarily like great or very good, just solid good stories. All of these books are right around like the 3.25, maybe 3.5 star range. And yeah, let's just get right into it with number 3. And that is It's Alive, It's Alive. This one also has a really cool cover on it. And this is book number 7 in the series. And this one is in a subgenre that I'm not really a big fan of all that much. It's dealing with technology and robots. It's kind of like a sci-fi horror story. It's something that I'm personally just not really, I don't really like that little subgenre all that much. But this one was really good. It's just a super solid story. If this one borrows from Stay Out of the Basement a little bit, it has some of those similar like plot points, and it kind of borrows from that structure a little bit. But I think what I liked about this one is it was just very well written from what I remember. It's a pretty airtight story. There's not many like logical inconsistencies in here or just a lot of unanswered questions. It feels like a complete, conclusive story. And that might not sound like, that might sound like something you should expect out of every book, but I will tell you right now, a lot of SlappyWorld books are not like this at all. So yeah, it was just kind of a satisfying book. This was a satisfying experience, I didn't quite love it. It wasn't amazing, but it's a solid like 3.5 star book. I enjoyed this. And yeah, I know a lot of people have this as like their number 1 pick, and I can understand why. This is a pretty good one. It's Alive, It's Alive comes in at number 3 for me. Again, my top 3 are all tied like very closely here. It's kind of hard to decide between them. Coming in at number 2, we have Fright Night. This was also one of the last ones I read in the series. I read in this month in February, and this is the very last SlappyWorld book, coming in at number 19. And this book is pretty much played up straight for comedy for last, kind of like Haunting with the Stars, except this one actually succeeds at the comedy. This book is one of the most hilarious Goosebumps books that I have ever read. It is very clever. It's not just childish and like slapstick humor and just weirdness like Haunting with the Stars and his tap dancing aliens. There's actually a lot of clever jokes in here, some kind of dark humor, some ironic humor, and there's some unique aspects to this story that make it feel very fresh. This is probably the most unique book in the entire SlappyWorld series, at least that I can think of. And I just really enjoyed this one, yeah. I don't really have any major complaints with it. I do remember thinking that it did feel a little bit, I don't know, empty by the end of it. The ending felt just a little bit rushed. I wasn't a huge fan of the final act. There was just something about it that didn't make it feel completely satisfying. I think maybe part of the reason is that it is just pretty much straight up a comedy. So it's one you can't take super seriously. And because you can't take it like 100% seriously, that it just doesn't feel, I don't know, wholly satisfying, I guess. I'm not really sure. But it's still a pretty entertaining book. 3.5 out of 5 stars. And it comes in at number 2 on my SlappyWorld ranking. Okay, coming in at number 1. And honestly, I would never have expected this book to be number 1. Nor would I have ever expected to even like this book as much as I did before I read it. And that is The Dummy Meets the Mummy. This is book number 8 in the series. This one also has a pretty cool cover too. I'm just now realizing that a lot of the artwork and cover arts for this SlappyWorld series are really good. Like, this is a pretty big improvement over a lot of the cover art we saw in like Horrorland and Most Wanted. Brandon Dorman is pretty talented, and yeah, I kind of like the cover for this one as well. And this book is just so much fun. This one is also a little bit cheesy and leans into the humor quite a bit. This one isn't really all that scary, but this is definitely the most unique SlappyWorld book, or not SlappyWorld book, Slappy, like Night of the Living Dummy type book in this series. And you basically just have, you're basically getting what you expect out of the title. Dummy Meets the Mummy. There's a big showdown at the end where the mummy and the dummy are duking it out, and it is just highly entertaining. This book is a ton of fun, and yeah, I don't really have anything negative to say about it, other than I just didn't quite love it. Again, like a 3.5 out of 5 stars. This is also one of my favorite mummy books. I'm not really a big fan of like the mummy genre either. The Curse of the Mummy's Tomb and Return of the Mummy, I think is what it's called, from the original 62 series. I didn't exactly love those books from the original series. They were just kind of whatever for me. This one is actually one of my favorite mummy books in the Goosebumps franchise. And yeah, comes in at number 1. Again, by a very small margin. I probably could, interchange it with the last 2 that I mentioned, but yeah. Dummy Meets the Mummy, as of right now, is my number 1 SlappyWorld book. That is it, guys. That is my ranking of SlappyWorld. Let me know what you guys think of this series, what your thoughts are on any of these books down below in the comments. And that's all I have today, guys. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Peace.